Yes, so I would like to thank everybody for being present here today. I think it's a very important and a topic that needs to be discussed in any country. So from our side, from ALO, we are very happy to host our guest here. And I also like to thank my colleague Şükran for coming up with this great initiative. So that being said, I'm gonna give the floor to Şükran to share some more details on the presentation today and on our guest speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. First of all, welcome to our guest speaker, Yersu Sahin. It's an honor for us to host you online today, and welcome everybody, our colleagues and our guests. Hopefully, we will have a very fruitful professional talk today. Today, we are going to be tackling a very interesting topic. It's not just interesting for the EU, but also for Turkey as being a candidate country. In the last decade, I think starting with Norway's initial steps, many of the European countries have been tackling with quotas to get more women on board in terms of involving them in professional lives. Especially where women are poorly represented in top company roles. Belgium, Italy, France have already came up with some legislations and some quotas with penalties, including fines. There are countries like Germany that introduced like 30% of quotas along with sanctions. And like also Netherlands, where companies must comply or at least explain why they do not comply if they do not hit the target of 30%. So the European Commission also has proposed an EU-wide legislation in that sense and mandating that the underrepresented gender make up at least 40% of companies' non-executive directors. Which won't pass unless member states each reach an agreement. But apparently all these efforts are working today, as in many of the European countries, women are getting more and more involved in the top company roles. Today we are going to shed more light on the topic, also from the perspective of a non-EU country, from Turkey. And about our guest speaker, we already know about Mrs. Sahin's achievements and educational and professional career. But maybe Mrs. Sahin, it's better if I give you the floor so that maybe you can introduce yourself briefly for those who would like to know, hear more about your profile. Thank you.
Thank you, Şükran, for having me, and thank you, Thomas. It's great being here today, and it's one of my favorite topics to talk about, so I'm very glad to be here. Thank you again for the invite, and you can call me Yersu, please. If I may talk about myself a bit, I was born and then raised in Ankara, Turkey. I actually studied business, not law. But while I was studying business at university, I had an internship at the Turkish Competition Authority, and that's how I got to know about the subject at all. And I loved it, and I decided that I would be really wanting to work for the authority after graduation. So that's what I did. I started as a case handler at the Turkish Competition Authority. I worked there for about 7 years, and I also did some masters during my work at the authority in order to cover up the lack of law. So I did a master's in arts at Bilkent University, Ankara, in law and economics, and then I did another one at King's College London on competition law. And after my work at the authority, I switched to the dark side, they say. So I went to the other side of the table, and I started working for as an in-house, let's say, for an FMCG company in Turkey as a competition compliance manager. First, I was covering only Turkey. Then I also started covering other countries, let's say. And since almost 3 months, I have been working at Unilever Turkey. And again, I am the competition compliance manager here. But while I am saying that, I will also make the disclaimer that I will be only talking about my personal experience and thoughts in this webinar, and it doesn't have anything to do with the company that I work for. So yeah, that's me. And I'm really glad being here again, I must say.
Thank you very much. Then I would propose that you share your screen, and then we are looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, can you share my screen at this moment or not?
For now, I see your screen. I see the presentation.
No, this is my screen, but if I stop, yes.
Okay. Then
Now you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, I am sharing it right now.
Yes.
It's okay? Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
So today, as I said, I will be talking about women in competition law in general and a bit on the Turkish perspective. So I think I might start if Şükran doesn't have anything. Okay.
Yeah. Yersu, if you would like to, we would appreciate if you start with the presentation, but I assume that at the end we are going to get the answer. What drew your attention to the topic after so many years working in the field of competition law and policies? What are your motives to combine gender equality, which is also a very interesting area for me, because at the moment I'm also having some in-depth studies in this field. So I'm very keen on hearing your motives on combining these two actually very distinct topics, or they seem so. So I'm looking forward to hearing your presentation.
So maybe I can start with that before the slides, let's say. So I might say that I have always been actually interested in gender equality issues. And in many times, to be honest, I felt personally affected by gender bias. I know that we have come a long way, but there's still maybe a longer way to go. So I know that there are many successful women at law and at competition law, but I often feel that at times they are outshined by their male counterparts, let's say. And I believe partly that this is because of the boys club mentality, where women have been historically excluded from, and we will be talking about that in the next slides also. So as women, we have to be bolder usually and louder than men. Unlike them, they don't have this need. So we always feel that we need to be in solidarity and must support each other in order to survive and get better and better in what we do. So I think we need the support of informal network of sisterhood in order to become more visible at what we do and overcome all these historical prejudices about women leaders and what they are able to achieve. So last year I actually participated in a certificate program at an institute. It's called Turkish Ethics and Reputational Society. It was a program on corporate ethics and compliance, and we had to do a graduation project to finish the program and get the certificate. So for that project, I chose to write a paper on the relationship between gender equality and ethics and compliance in general. I wanted to study whether gender equality at management positions and more women leaders lead to more ethical organizations, let's say. And the more I researched, the more I was convinced that I should personally contribute to such studies and efforts, because it's important to keep the issue hot, always up to date, on the agenda, relevant, and talk about it to, again, keep it on the agenda always. So yeah, that's how I got to be interested about this subject, and right now with an academician actually, we have been working on an academic paper. We were trying to include some empirical studies as well. I'm not sure that we are gonna be able to do that, but we will definitely write a paper on the subject. At least I know that it will be an introduction at the Turkish side of things. So yes, I might answer your question maybe like that.
Yeah, very well answered. Thank you so much.
So, if I may go on with the slides, maybe I can first start with glass ceiling and what it is all about. So we know that difficulties exist that women face with, while men don't face with these kind of difficulties. So women are having trouble while surpassing the mid-management roles and getting higher positions and moving forward in their career through wider roles and responsibilities, leading broader teams and reaching high-level management positions in the end. So these are kind of difficulties that men never actually think about. They don't have to, because they know that if they work enough and when their success is seen and appreciated, they will be climbing up the ladder without any problem. But we don't. Next slide is a bit complicated. Maybe there's a lot of data on this. I don't want to go into much detail, but I might say that although the situation in Turkey about glass ceiling and women on boards of companies, corporate companies, and the biggest companies in Turkey is improving, there are so many more women now at this stage on boards, but still it's not good enough. We can see in the middle chart, let's say, that women make up of 15.6% of company boards in the biggest 100 companies in Turkey. And within these companies, 25 companies are all men. And I mean, boards are made up of all men, and there are no women at all. And it's a real big problem, I think. And when we look at the details of the women representatives on boards, we see that actually most of them are part of the family that owns the company. So they are one of the shareholders, and they are not independent, they are not professional members of the board. So we can actually say that it's not even 17% or 15.6%, but it's actually 9.8% who broke the glass ceiling and managed to actually climb up the ladder of the career steps, let's say. And the target for Turkey is having 30% women on boards by 2025. But when we look at the trend, we already realize that no way it's gonna happen. But probably, and if we think really positively, it can only happen in 2035, sorry, and not 25. So even though the situation is improving, it's little by little, and it's not enough, I might say. So going on to the next slide, how to break the glass ceiling. So we acknowledge that there's a problem here. How to find a solution to that? Of course, family-friendly policies, gender equal childcare, positive discrimination, these are all good. But the studies show that quotas are the most effective ways for fast and dramatic increases, actually, in the number of women and percentage of women in boards. For instance, in France, in only 10 years, the representation percentage raised from 6.4 to 46%. So it's a real dramatic increase that we see here. And empirical studies show that quotas are especially effective in some certain circumstances. So they work better when there are these kind of circumstances, such as path dependency. For instance, when career paths are drawn by the members of the gentlemen's club in favor of men again, so there's a dependency on that. Men are favoring men it goes on like this, then quotas work really well in breaking that trend, let's say. Again, in companies where women do not have enough network to get promoted, quotas work very well. So women don't have the informal or formal network in order to show their achievements, let's say, and their potential for success, then there's no way that they will get promoted because men will be favoring men again. So again, in this circumstance, quotas will work very well. Empirical studies at least show this. Another case is when discrimination is the main reason why women representation is little on boards. So, for instance, when women in leadership positions support and empower other women, or at least don't discriminate as much as men leaders would do, then future women leaders can be nurtured, nourished, and grow. And as women become visible in leadership positions, men will start getting used to seeing that, and perspectives towards certain features associated with women, such as women being gentle and compliant, while men are tough and confident and they can achieve targets, can change actually. So people will see women in hands-on experience, and they will see that actually they are able to achieve the targets and good results for the companies. And when they see it, they will be promoting and empowering a lot more women. So the dependency will in time change. So I think also quotas will work very well, although there are some opinions saying otherwise. But in the end, I think it's better when compared with its supposed negative sides, let's say. Şükran, is there anything you want to say here?
Yeah, if I may interrupt, there's
Sure.
something that I would like to comment on. Just like you mentioned, Yersu, I also agree that family-friendly policies are very important, especially in terms of governments to take action in that regard, and also quotas, although I also have some doubts about it. It also reminds me of a certain degree of vulnerability, and therefore I'm not 100% sure whether I'm fond of this idea or not, but it seems that it is working. So it's also something that we cannot ignore, as long as it's an efficient measure to get more and more women on board. I can also say that I'm also for this idea. But I think the governments should also take more role on ensuring some measures, and also the legislators. For example, in some countries, if we talk about the example of parental leave, the parental leave changes between genders. For women, it's envisaged in the law for a longer duration, while for men, it's for a shorter period. So this is also not matching with the expectations that we are here to mention when we say family-friendly policies. But on the other side of the coin, I think it's also important that we somehow try to alter the perception, the prevalent perception in society. For example, if we talk about the Turkish society, no matter if the government comes up with more enhanced legislation, and not just in terms of parental leave, but for other measures regarding gender equal, for example, childcare or policies, the society should also follow those measures. And the problem is that in our society, I think the prevalent perception is that women are the main actors to take care of their children in a family. I, as a judge, that you know, only a couple of months ago I was a judge before my resignation. I even heard this from my colleagues. There were times that women colleagues of mine defended that I should have been the one to take the parental leave, not my husband, because he did so, and it was a very strange thing in their point of view. So they were questioning, okay, but why? Why aren't you taking the leave, but your husband? Because women are more to take care of their children. They do it better, they think, or maybe they think that the child feels more need to the mother, which is not correct in my opinion. So unfortunately, this is not about education. I'm talking about highly educated people also have this perception. So maybe it's not just the governments, but also the society dynamics that should also follow the new trends in that sense to reach to a really solid and effective solution. I don't know if you agree on that.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I think, yeah, we need to change that kind of mentality. And it's not just up to the government. Maybe NGOs should also be working on that. And we should be educated children since the beginning at school to think in that direction, in that kind of way. Yeah, it starts from the very beginning, I think, of the education process. And we need to, nourish people with that kind of thought. Maybe every day. So it's, I think, good that we are talking about it, and more people should be talking about it. One day I think we will make the change, but slowly and surely, I hope. But one day.
It's not going to happen overnight, but I think what we are all doing has a meaning. Towards the final goal. Thank you.
Thank you. So going on with the slides, how can we break the glass ceiling? At least, I must say that this slide was prepared more for the companies to take into account while they are imposing policies in order to break the glass ceiling, or any other corporate organization, let's say. It can also be an NGO, or the government might also take it into account. So within the organization, a good kind of corporate communication should be sustained, and the need to effectively communicate the positive effects and clear causation of women leaders on work results must be again effectively communicated. We will talk about these causation and the positive effects on the next slides. It shouldn't be just words. We know that nowadays many companies are using gender equality even as a way of competition. Way of sustaining competition with other companies. It has become really popular, just like sustainability claims. But it shouldn't be just words, and companies or other organizations must take tangible actions and demonstrate these actions in reality. These targets must be clear, aggressive, but also achievable. They shouldn't just set goals that will never be achieved, but something realistic should be there to achieve. And making gender equality part of the ethical code of conduct, because the code of conduct is usually seen as the constitution of companies, and they make commitments in order to follow, and shareholders and stakeholders are looking over whether the companies are trying to realize these targets or the commitments. So I think it should be taken seriously at all management levels, and should be executed without any exception. So the organizations must show that they actually care about gender equality, and they take concrete and real steps in order to achieve these targets, and that they are committed to that no matter what. There are also organizations just like UN that really support these targets. It's part of the sustainable development goals for companies. And I see from the company side of things that actually companies are really taking it seriously, because now consumers or the public in general, and stakeholders as well, and shareholders are taking the subject seriously, and they are asking companies to do some actual achievements on that. So it has become a part of the competition paradigm, as I see it. So companies are trying to set higher goals and achieve and have better achievements, let's say, on the issue of gender equality, but it must be sincere and it must be real for it to make a change, I think. Moving on. So I have said in the previous slide that the number of women leaders actually make a change in the company, and companies should deliver that communication throughout the company. But of course, we need to see for real what women leaders do and how they affect the running of a company. So we see from empirical evidence and research that the effect of women leaders qualify to low ethical risk and high performance in the companies. First, misconducts are less when there are women leaders, more women leaders, or let's say at management levels. Only 8% of perpetrators are women in the case of the misuse of assets, embezzlement, purchasing misconducts, conflict of interest, corruption, bribery. So the conducts against ethical grounds, let's say, or infringements, let's say, happen way less when there are more women at top management positions, we can say that. And women's share in the frequency of misconducts is very low, and also the amount of material loss as a result of misconducts is very low when there are more women at top management levels. And then again, environmental, social, and corporate governance performance is better when there are more women leaders at top positions. So company ESG performance increases when the percentage of women board members raise up to the critical level of 30%. That's what empirical evidence shows again. Internal audit performance, management monitoring, these are strengthened. Corruption risks and other ethical infringements decrease. A more positive work environment is sustained. Stakeholder loyalty again increases. Brand and reputation is improved. And meaningful value is provided to work results as we see it when there are more women at leadership positions. And financial performance is also improved. There are higher equity profits, higher return on assets, decrease of financial risks, and so on and so forth. And moving on to competition law. So what are the effects on competition infringements when there are more women in top leadership positions? This was a question that I was trying to find an answer for during my research, let's say. And I ran into the OECD study. There's a very good study done by the OECD, not fully done, but initiated by the OECD, let's say. So they have a gender-inclusive competition policy ways forward study. I think they did it with the Canadian Competition Bureau. And many other countries, EU countries, and also competition authorities were involved in the study. If you are interested in this issue, I really suggest that you look up to that at the OECD website. There are also YouTube videos on that, explaining each and every one of these projects. And for me, it's very interesting. But again, if you are interested in more detail, you can research for that. There are 7 studies covered in this program, let's say. I won't talk about all of them, but there were 3 that I was thinking that they are really interesting, and I want to share them with you today. First, there's a study titled Gender and Collusion, and it was trying to find whether gender affects how companies collude or don't. So the findings were that men decision makers are more prone to competition law infringements, women are more inclined to avoid shame and guilt, and therefore women rarely make anti-competitive agreements. If, as a result of a cartel, someone gets hurt, namely consumers, get hurt, women tend to change their behavior and they give up on being part of the cartel. So I think these are really good findings about women decision makers. It shows directly that women don't get involved in a cartel, and if they do, and if they realize that consumers will get hurt by that, they tend to change their behavior and they stop being part of the cartel. Also, the study found that there's a complementarity between anti-cartel policies and gender equality policies. So that the study says competition policy can be an instrument for gender equality, and or women quotas can be an effective tool in the fight against cartels. And the study also makes some recommendations. It says that diversity should be promoted as part of competition advocacy efforts, and also as a part of the evaluation of firms' compliance programs. And also enforcement priorities may be given by competition authorities to industries characterized by lower degrees of management diversity. So, for instance, what comes up to my mind is the concrete market, where there are much less women professionals at top management positions. And historically, it is one of the industries where there are a lot of cartels. Of course, the competition authorities can prioritize that industry, also taking into account the gender situation in the industry and the involved companies, I think. So I think this study and the results are really interesting. Next, there's another study, and the title is Gender Differences for Market Definition and Merger Analysis. This is also an important and interesting issue at the same time, because competition authorities, as we see, both in Turkey and the EU, don't really take into account gender while they are defining the relevant markets in their competition cases. And especially in merger analysis, this might be something that needs to be taken into account, but the competition authorities always oversee that. Maybe this study will change the way they think, I think. In this study, the main question is, are there significant gender differences for market definition, and do they matter for competition assessment? So the main question really is there a difference in consumer behavior between men and women? Because if there is, then maybe we need to define the markets in a different way, according to men and women separately. So the findings of this study is like this. The case study found significant differences by gender in terms of substitution preferences for products, price sensitivity, again for products or services, and switching behavior. So when the price of a product raises, does the consumer switch to a different product? According to this study, it differs by gender. Again, the price sensitivity differs by gender. Sometimes men switch faster than women when there's a price increase, but women wait for the price to get higher in order to switch to a different product. So the study also found, there are many findings, but I only took 2 of them here just as an example. Men are more likely to switch service contract providers. So when there's a price raise, men are easily switching to different products, but we can say women are more loyal, or they are less sensitive to price differences. And this is really important. So we need to take it into account in cases, especially merger and acquisition cases, where we suspect that there might be a price increase as a result of the merger, and the merged company might raise the prices, but it may differ for men and women. I mean, the effect of it may depend on gender. Again, types of products purchased in grocery stores are different. One of the other findings is this. So again, there might be different incentives in M&As for merchant parties while raising their prices. They might raise their prices less for men and more for women, according to the type of product, maybe. So yeah, these are the findings, and of course there are competition policy implications. Where firms can differentiate by gender, it can lead to significantly more harm to one specific consumer group, which is mostly women. So compared to the average, women will get hurt more by these price increases. If firms can't differentiate by gender, the effect will depend on the size of the groups and the level of switching. So if women don't switch, they will be affected more. So the effect will depend again, but as we see, mostly women don't switch that fast in a price increase, so they might get hurt more as a result of a cartel or as an M&A deal. Women might get hurt more again. So in the end, competition authorities, consumer groups, undertakings, anyone involved in the relevant cases should consider these kind of significant gender differences, and they should say it out loud. And then gender will be considered more in competition cases, which will probably favor women in the end, I might say. And next, another interesting case, project, or let's say, I want to share with you from the OECD study. It's called Cartel Behavior and Boys Club Dynamics. So the study says that actually it is not about the essential nature of men and women, but it's more about network dynamics and social structure. It says that preservation of shared values, loyalty, homosocial patterns within male informal professional networks is the key factor for the maintenance of cartel practices. This is quite interesting, I mean, for me to read, because I remember from the competition authority experience I had, or anywhere else in the private sector, I never ever considered this as a reason for cartel, the forming or maintenance of a cartel, but it makes a lot of sense. Maybe you will agree with me. So the study says the prevalence of these boys' clubs in many industries actually can explain the creation and maintenance of cartels. The mechanism that favors trust and illicit behavior between men is also affecting gender equality, because it also leads to the exclusion of women from dominant professional networks and limit, of course, their opportunities for career development and getting a promotion. And by boys' club in the study, they mean that organization recruiting men who then create a circle of solidarity, both horizontally among peers and vertically through mentoring, both within a company and among different companies. So it's a network of boys. And the study even says old boys club, but I didn't want to put it here. So the study researched over 50 cartels that were sanctioned by the French Competition Authority in 12 years, between 2010 and 2021. So according to this data, let's say, 98.4% of the cartel participants were men. The core coalition were almost wholly made up of men. There were only 5 women in this core coalition. And the key findings of the study are women were typically not part of the conspiracy groups, as we said, and when they were involved, they had only minor outsider roles. They weren't in the core capacity. They had some secretarial roles in most of the cartels, even when they ranked higher. And this is strange, because even when they ranked higher than their male counterparts, they were still at secretarial roles in this cartel, and they made less profit, even though they were one of the conspirators. Again, male cartel participants earned more than the women in the cartel. Only 5 women were full members of a core coalition, and only 4 of these I mean, not only, but 4 of these participated in a formal capacity. They didn't participate through informal networks. They were there because they were in the top management level and not because they were friends with the other boys. Only one of the women participants were in the cartel because of the informal relations she had with a male co-conspirator. They were really good friends. But other than that, women participated only through formal networks. So by that, the study says women are more effectively excluded from male-dominated informal networks, and they need to use formal networks even to cartelize. And going on with the recommendations of the study says that competition authorities should mention the gender structure of the firms that they investigated in their published decisions, especially in cases where they impose fines to companies. They need to set the gender structure anonymously, of course, not mentioning names, maybe. But again, this might help the society to acknowledge that actually men are more prone to being part of cartels rather than women. The study also recommends to set investigation priorities according to the gender structure of firms and their informal relationships, because it matters for cartel. Also, they recommend expanding detection activities to informal networks such as alumni associations, local business groups, sports and cultural associations, charities. So informal networks are very important for the formation and sustainability of a cartel, and therefore it should be taken into account as a priority by the competition authorities. And also as a part of competition advocacy efforts. This kind of examples should be delivered and communicated to the employees of companies in order to make them aware of the risks of such informal networks. And yeah, corporations again should take into account the network dynamics while designing their antitrust compliance programs. I will definitely think about that in the future while I'm revisiting the competition compliance program that I do, and consider gender imbalance when setting priorities for internal audit activities. Maybe companies should look more in detail to the informal networks that the company has. So these are, I think, really interesting studies for me. And if there are other competition enthusiasts among you, like I am, I really encourage you and suggest you to look more in detail into this OECD study. Watch the video, that's really nice, and it changed my vision at least. Maybe it will change yours as well. And going back to the women in competition law, of course, we have great role models, especially from the EU. The former EU Commissioner for Competition, Neelie Kroes, often quoted former US Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, saying that there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And I totally agree with that. And we also have our current EU Commissioner for Competition, and she's a great role model as well. And she likes to quote Mrs. Albright as well, as often as she can. And she also says that prioritizing gender equality and female empowerment is her #1 goal, which is amazing, I think, for us. It's great to know that there are so many accomplished women in competition that we can look up to. So yeah, we are lucky, I think. And I want to talk about women at competition. So there's a network called Women at Competition. Actually, there's a global network called Women at, for women working in different professions, let's say. But there's a Women at Competition, which I am specifically enthusiastic about. So it's a global organization. aimed at empowering women who work in competition law and economics as well. And many countries and continents are actually involved and included in this network. I think it started in Brussels. It was founded in Brussels, but then it moved on and gone global. I think it's really important to put successful women professionals in the spotlight and appreciate their efforts and achievements as well. I believe that such opportunities are much scarcer for women, and when compared to men, of course. And it's important to acknowledge success, as I did. As I said, spare some time to celebrate success, make successful women more visible, demonstrate them as role models for aspiring young professionals, as we can see from the European commissioners from competition, and supporting each other. So it's a great opportunity to empower women, to make them more visible through publications, award ceremonies, posting news, everything that helps make women more visible and also appreciate their success and encourage them to achieve more. My role at Women at Competition Turkey, I think we have formed our team about 2 years ago. I'm both a team member and a mentor at this organization. Of course, since the pandemic started, as we founded this Turkey organization, we haven't yet done much, I might say, unfortunately. But we have a mentorship program going on for a while, and it has been, I think, so far a huge success. The mentorship program of WomenAt is cross-organizational, cross-cultural, cross-disciplinary, so it's interdisciplinary as well. Both for the mentors and mentees, I think it's a great opportunity to teach and learn from each other. It's a unique chance to exchange experiences, share problems, because we have shared problems no matter how young or old or experienced or inexperienced we are. And we share our lessons also and gifts. So we learn a lot and empower each other. I think it's a great informal network for women. And after the pandemic, we are hopeful. I think we will be organizing workshops and conferences for women. And the main target will be to make successful women at competition more visible. Like I said, to empower them, to give them some role models to look up to. And we will be providing a valuable alternative platform for women at competition to become more visible again and get their voice heard about what they have to say. So yes, this is what I want to share with you today. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Yersu, for this very interesting and engaging presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure my colleagues and our guests also enjoyed it very much. It was really very fit to the purpose of our talk today, and I wonder if anybody has any questions, but I surely have, but maybe we can ask our colleagues and guests.
Yes. No, thank you very much. It was a very interesting presentation, and I think we all have some questions, but as Şükran said, we will invite our colleagues and participants to also ask a question. So I would say if you have a question, you could either speak or write in the comments. Maybe a question from my side. What do you think is the main challenge, I would say, for your case in Turkey, but also globally? And what do you think is the way forward?
As I see, I mean, there are many challenges, but what came up to my mind right away is that the visibility of women in competition law. I think it's not enough still. There are like many good conferences that we gather in seminars, workshops, but as I see it, even though there are many successful women at competition, I know it personally, I know them, but I see them rarely being a participant in panels as a speaker. And they have the experience, they have the knowledge, we know about it, but still there's like this block that is blocking them, and they can't be as visible as their male counterparts, let's say. So I think maybe, I mean, we are talking about quotas all the time about companies, but maybe quotas will work for conferences, workshops, seminars as well. I mean, it's great that I had this opportunity to be here today. And it's thanks to you, Thomas, but also, of course, thanks to Şükran and our female network, as I might say. So I think we should, as women, use it more effectively. But also, of course, we need the help of men, our male counterparts, our colleagues, to support us in achieving this. Yeah, that's what I want to mention right away.
All right. Thank you very much for that reply. So I would give the floor to my colleague Şükran. And in case there are any more questions, just feel free to talk or write something in the comment box. Thank you.
Yeah, Yersu, while I was listening to you, I just thought that maybe sometimes we should also focus on the perspective from the male side.
Yeah.
Practically speaking, sometimes when I also work in this field, I sometimes feel that I put the focus always and only on women. But then I remember that there are men and they also have equal rights, that we don't want to, you know, abuse their rights or abuse their
of course.
positions or so. We just want to make it a balance in work life and in
Definitely.
business. But looking from a practical side, I wonder if aligning with all these measures, such as quotas, should be at the expense of, you know, putting aside the merit-based selections and the skills, appreciating the skills. Because, for example, when I think of an example that I'm an employer, let's say, and I have a vacancy announcement, which I listed some requirements and some qualifications, and then I receive some applications. And when I check the applicants' backgrounds, then if I find out that most of the women applicants do not really match with the criteria, then how am I to, you know, comply with those quotas that are put on us by governments or by EU Commission or so? I think we should also stick on the education side of this goal, a long-term target. Because if we can come up with more number of highly educated women in close future, then I think it will also be easier for the employers to comply with these measures, because I'm sure that most of them have good wills and intentions, but sometimes they're just stuck, especially in countries where women, unfortunately, are still a few steps behind men in terms of education and skills. So if we can achieve this target also in terms of education, then we can maybe come with a pool in which there are equal candidates, so that employer can confidently select equal women and equal men. But if we cannot do that, if there is still a lack of highly qualified, educated women in the sectors, and it's also a bit practically tough and you know, challenging for business leaders, whether women or men. That doesn't matter, but let's say in general for employers, it's a challenge. I don't know if you agree on that, but I just want to also raise that, because I also do it as a mistake in my studies. Sometimes I focus on women. but I just wanted to raise it so that we don't forget that this is
That's an excellent comment. Really, I agree with that. Yeah, we need to keep that in mind as well. But something came up to my mind while you were giving this example. As I remember it correctly, there was a statistical study done in one of the biggest corporations in Turkey. I don't want to mention the name, but I know it personally because of my personal relationships with the one who did the study. They realized that in employment process, let's say, the HR, the human resources department did that study. So they realized that women candidates are only chosen when they are I mean, let's say there are four candidates, and women only have the chance to be chosen if there are 3 candidates applying for that position and not less. So if there are 2 candidates, there's no chance that the woman candidate will be chosen. So I think it also shows that still we have a long way to go. That's why I kind of think that maybe until we have a normalization at last, maybe we should still get the help of quotas in order to equalize this imbalance. I mean, I agree totally with your point of view, and definitely there's a lot of truth about it. But I also tend to think about this and think that we already have this kind of imbalance that we need to somehow correct. And maybe in the short term, there will be a misjudgment, or maybe it will be a bit unfair, yes, for accomplished and successful and worthy man candidates. But maybe we need to correct that imbalance first, and then after everything is normalized, we can be more fair. But I don't know. I'm not really 100% sure of this, but I tend to think this way when I think about the current imbalance situation.
Yeah, I know. Thank you for the comment. I also know that you are personally and professionally very merit-based focused professional. So we both think that qualifications matter, skills matter. So when we put ourselves in employers' shoes, as I said, whether women or men, we understand that merit-based selection also is very important, as important as gender equality. So it's not a very easy decision to make for employers. Thank you.
Yes, great. Well, on my part, I would like to thank you very much for being our guest speaker to, I would say, our first webinar that my colleague Şükran, I would say, was the main architect of putting together. And I found it very interesting to listen to your point of view, and also to have these interactions to share our views. And I think also from my side, I think quotas are very important, but I'm also glad what Şükran raised. Of course, you have to look at the balance of having also candidates that, of course, have the knowledge and can perform the tasks. So then I think that's a discussion that can go on forever. But I think for today we will stop here. But I will give the last talk to my colleague Şükran, if she would like to give a final remark. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas, for having me again.
Thank you, Thomas, for the final words. And many thanks to you, Yersu, for being our first guest speaker at ALO Professional Talks. We are glad to host you here today, and we hope that soon, in close future, we are going to be able to host you in our office in Antwerp. And hopefully we will also visit you in Turkey very soon, once the corona lets us. So on behalf of the ALO team, thank you again for the effort, for the time that you spared for this talk. And we hope to meet again in the future for another professional reason.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure for me being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.